This is the story of one family who looted an entire nation. Hey guys, what's up? It's your channel Primetime TV. If you are new to our channel, then make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit that bell icon to never ever miss an update from us in the future. The Rajapaksas were a powerful Sri Lankan family who ruled the country with an iron fist for over 25 years. They were known for their corruption and lavish lifestyle while the people of Sri Lanka struggled. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the Rajapaksas and see how they managed to loot an entire nation. A protracted economic crisis culminated on April 12, 2022, when the Sri Lankan government temporarily stopped making payments to its creditors abroad. It is the first default in Sri Lanka's post-independence history, but many who have watched the government's tremendous economic mismanagement since President Gotabaya Rajapaksas' election in November 2019 are not surprised. When Mahinda Rajapaksa served as president from 2005 to 2015, Sri Lanka's economy really started to collapse. Foreign direct investment and portfolio flows from international capital markets flooded into Sri Lanka after the civil conflict that ended in 2009. Chinese capital surpluses and the world financial crisis of 2007 to 2008, which was followed by lax global monetary policy, made it easier for Sri Lanka to borrow money. The Mahinda Rajapaksa administration claimed to have experienced years of spectacular growth, but the expansion was of a particular kind. Large-scale infrastructure initiatives like highways, an airport, and a Lotus Tower that were tainted with corruption yielded meager returns and lined the cash reserves of a parasitic class of politically connected business people. Meanwhile, the president's critics were persecuted, and journalists were assassinated or vanished, spreading fear and encouraging self-censorship. A brief turnaround. 2015 saw an improvement in human rights and freedom of speech thanks to the election of a new government. In spite of droughts and rising international interest rates, Sri Lanka produced its first significant primary surplus in 60 years in 2017 and another in 2018, because of a brief period of tax reform that occurred between 2017 and 2019. Though the nation, under the coalition formed by Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe, moved away from the isolationism that dogged Sri Lankan economic and diplomatic policy in the prior decade, it did not do enough to reverse protectionism or to combat corruption. The macroeconomic situation in Sri Lanka was precarious in 2018 and 2019. Even before COVID-19 arrived there, Sri Lanka simply wasn't making enough money to repay its dollar debts due to a lengthy history of poor export performance and diminishing revenue collection since the 1990s, as officials continued to exempt the wealthy and corporations from taxes. The government took on additional debt between 2015 and 2019, and 89.8% of that debt was utilized to repay interest on debts that was still unpaid at the end of 2014 Gotabaya's reign again. But after that, Gotabaya Rajapaksa won the presidency, and an economy that was already faltering gradually started to fall apart quickly. The government, rather than addressing the numerous structural issues plaguing the economy, made concessions to rent-seeking crony capitalists and embraced a divisive ethno-nationalism, which included continuing to repress Tamils in the economically struggling north and east and supporting anti-Muslim hate campaigns that had first started around 2012. It used the same racially divisive governing model that produced a civil war and a brain drain, which are likely the two factors most responsible for Sri Lanka's historically low economic growth. Nobody who took the situation seriously thought the nation would be able to pay off the $29 billion in debt it owed over the following 5 years, or the roughly $7 billion in debt it owed last year. But Sinhalese Buddhist supremacists, crony capitalists, the state-owned media, and some significant private media outlets supported Sri Lanka's government, which was made up largely of Rajapaksa family members and supporters. It persisted in gaslighting its citizens. It put off dealing with the problem by refinancing debt using credit lines and currency swaps from China and India, dismissing the global financial crisis as a temporary foreign exchange and liquidity crisis. And the Rajapaksa government gradually ran out of money to cover Sri Lanka's basic requirements, including fuel, medicine, milk powder, and gas, as the nation dipped into its depleting foreign currency reserves to pay off creditors. Yet, supporters of the regime and members of its inner circle continued to insist that the nation's debt was manageable. They argued that there were no shortages when fuel lines sprung up all over the nation and milk was rationed in stores, as if the people who were standing in line and subsequently dying in them were a part of some elaborate plot. A terrible political error. The Rajapaksas made a terrible political error by going back to their tried and true method of operation. In the past, individuals who opposed the Rajapaksas, fought against corruption, or called for war crimes investigations were labeled as extremists, terrorists, or dangers to the state. The Rajapaksas' self-presentation as Sri Lanka's unquestionable patriots, those who alone had the country's best interests at heart and were able to meet its security and economic needs, was supported by this decades-long approach. Voters who enjoyed Sinhalese Buddhist dominance and believed in these beliefs, and the minority bogeyman from which they were allegedly being protected would, however, be greatly let down when fuel lines grew longer and power outages started. As one impacted group becomes aware of the injustices and complaints experienced by another, empathy, not apathy, is developing. The biggest falsehood of them all, that the nation is dependent on the Rajapaksas, gains from their reign, and owes them tacit fealty, has completely fallen apart. Like and share the video with as many people as you can so that they may know how the Rajapaksas looted the entire nation. Stay aware, stay safe.